There, Joe. Developing right now for you. There's a new report from DHS, their internal watchdog. They detail the dangerous conditions, the overcrowding that are happening at places like this, detention centers across Texas. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle reacted a little bit earlier to that. And joining us now, MSNBC contributor and professor at the University of Texas, Victoria DeFrancesco. Victoria, we're talking about, this report that came out, and it does not look good. And the pictures also detail, again, doubling up, shoulder to shoulder, issues of drinking water, issues of smell, of heat, of warmth, of humidity. And then you look at the New York Times article that lays out the pictures of these detention centers. And some might say detention center is a word that is an understatement.
The conditions there are literally at a crisis point. If we remember back in the summer last year, we saw the zero tolerance policy that really triggered this episode. And it's really been bad since the beginning, Richard. This is the issue, and it's just gotten increasingly worse. And I'm going to add some bad news onto this in that it's getting worse for immigrants. So there's the problem of the overcrowding and the inhumane conditions on the U.S. side. But what has been out of the news but is happening is the increase and expansion of the Remain in Mexico program, where folks who are seeking asylum are saying, okay, here's a ticket, get in line, we'll get to your case in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but you have to stay in Mexico. It just so happens that the places that they're staying along the Texas-Mexico border are some of the most dangerous places in Mexico. So here you have migrants in peril on both sides of the border, and really a breaking point that I don't know what's going to happen, Richard.
Well, Victoria, you're right there. You're close by to what's happening, and you've seen it yourself because you've been to the border.
Yes.
And we've seen 124% increase, according to this report, coming from DHS that came out 2 days before, on July 2nd. What are mayors doing there? What are CBOs or community-based organizations? Are they coming together? Because they're really the boots on the ground for all of these migrants when they're outside of the centers.
Absolutely. So the government has really failed in terms of the leadership from the beginning, from thinking through how this whole policy implementation was going to work, and we're seeing the effects of that now. So this is where faith-based agencies have chipped in. To be honest, just individuals who are driving from all across the state, all across the country to come and help out. The Texas Tribune, based here in Austin, has done a phenomenal job of updating resources for folks who want to help, from giving money to legal resources, to the shelter. So the silver lining to this is we see that people here in the United States are compassionate and are humane and don't want to see this happen under their watch.
Let me ask you a question, and again, coming from a view of, as you get closer to these cities that are going through this particular crisis, does it become less partisan? Does it become more nonpartisan in terms of, let's try to fix this, or does it stay still partisan?
I think on the border itself, it's in crisis mode. And in a crisis mode, you're just focused on what's in front of you. So to answer your question, yes, Richard. But as we creep up the couple hundred miles from the border up to the Austin Capitol, we see a very strong partisan divide. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and the lieutenant governor still very strong on the anti-immigrant, on the restrictionist front, and in fact wanting to send more Texas National Guard troops to the border. So the folks on the ground who are seeing it day in and day out are focused on the humanitarian needs, but further out than that, regrettably, it's politics as usual.
Well, that might be part of the solution then, Victoria, as we look closer to the leaders that are at the border as they speak more from the heart and what they see. Always great to talk with you, Victoria DeFrancesco. Thank you there in Austin, Texas.
Take care, Richard.
All righty.